Hello, 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 coaches and leaders. I am so excited. Jenny Donahue is on, and she is an expert in collective efficacy, which I feel like a lot of the episodes in the past have hinted towards it. And maybe we've mentioned it a few times, but today we are having an entire episode focused on collective efficacy. She's written books on it, she runs workshops nationwide on this. So before we jump into it, first of all, I wanted to welcome you to the show, Jenny.
Thank you, Becca.
Yeah. So before we jump in, I'd love you to share what has been your journey in education.
Well, I began my career in education as a classroom teacher in Ontario, Canada. From there, I worked at the district level supporting professional learning communities in both our elementary and secondary schools. I worked for a short amount of time for the Council of Directors of Education in Ontario, doing some research provincially to see about policy implementation. And for the last 10 years or so, I've been working as an educational consultant, both nationally and internationally.
Oh, it's really great. I love internationally, right? So you do work in Canada. Do you do any other work in any other countries?
I have. I've done some work in New Zealand and in Australia, and I've connected with some people in Singapore as well.
Oh my gosh, I have some listeners, especially in Australia. So, Australian listeners, she's been there. This is really great. I love this. Okay, so I want to jump right in. Let's talk about collective efficacy. And I just want to get, I love definitions. I love when everyone has the same understanding of the words we're using. So before we even get started, I know listeners, I know you know what collective efficacy is, but I want us to get a definition. Jenny, how do you define collective efficacy?
Collective teacher efficacy is a shared belief that through their combined efforts, educators can produce positive outcomes in schools and increase student achievement despite other factors in students' lives that often pose challenges to their success.
I love that. Okay, great. And you are the person to talk about this with. So there's a ton of research on this, right?
Yes.
What in general, could you summarize the research? What does the research say is the impact and the importance of teacher collective efficacy?
Well, what's important to note is that it's a belief, right? It's not
Hmm.
a program, but it's a mindset.
Hmm.
It's the way we think about impact.
Hmm.
The research dates back many decades. It's not a new concept. And studies regarding the effect of collective teacher efficacy, I think, date back into the 1980s. And
Hmm.
several additional studies have been conducted since. And what the research continues to demonstrate is that when comparing schools that are similar demographically, where there's a strong sense of collective teacher efficacy, student achievement is significantly higher.
Mm.
And studies even show that collective efficacy helps to reduce gaps in achievement for students considered disadvantaged. So it's a concept that I'm passionate about, and I think it's essential to help build awareness about what it is and why it's important.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that, right? It's like directly related to student achievement, and it doesn't have to do with the circumstances because the research compared schools with the same circumstances. Same
Absolutely.
circumstances, collective efficacy, higher student achievement.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's really great. And a belief, I spend quite a bit of time thinking and talking about beliefs and a belief is the way our neural pathways are wired, right? Whatever wires together fires together, right? So whatever neural pathways we have is the way our thinking is going to go. And a belief is simply that, right? It's not this abstract thing. It's actually the way our brains are wired.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. So what made you interested in studying this and specializing in this? You've written three books on this, correct?
Three books on the topic.
Yeah.
What made me interested? I think when John Hattie put a name to it,
Mm-hmm.
we have our book publisher in common. And so I've had opportunities to collaborate with
Mm-hmm.
John Hattie. And I experienced and witnessed the positive outcomes that occur in schools where efficacy was established, but I just didn't have a name to it. And when John updated his meta-analysis, visible learning, which I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with, um,
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2011, a researcher out of the University of Chicago wrote the first meta-analysis. And of course, John updated his research and placed collective teacher efficacy at the top. It was when I started to learn about that that I began to make connections to my own experiences and then decided to write about it.
That's great. So I'd love to hear real world stories now. Where have you experienced, and I do love some good non-examples too. So if you could share maybe even just like the journey of some schools going from non collective teacher efficacy to having it, what does it look like when schools don't? And then maybe even like what does it take to develop it? And then what does it look like afterwards when they it's more of a journey. I'm assuming, right? It's like a journey of developing it. But what does it look like kind of as they've made it through some development?
Well, I like that you asked for non-examples because when John Hattie first announced his update, I'd see a lot of claims and social media posts. And my favorite non-example was an image of a game of human hungry hippos. And if you can
Yes.
imagine that, teachers,
Yes.
and I mean, there's no problem with fun and laughter in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the caption was, what a great way to build collective efficacy. And that's where I would say it's a really good non-example. I
Mm-hmm.
think that people misunderstand what it is and how to foster it. I've witnessed many teams, and I think that the key is a mastery experience. I'm thinking of a team that set a goal to improve outcomes for students on a standardized literacy test. They put some strategies that were very promising in place. They waited until those results came through, and the day they were announced, they saw that what they did made a difference. And they're building their efficacy through those opportunities to have firsthand success. That's the number one source of efficacy for people. Um, and so what does it look like and sound like? Um, I think that a strong sense of efficacy really, what the research will show is it helps teachers be more persistent, more effortful, set
Mm-hmm.
higher goals, be
Mm-hmm.
more willing to engage in professional learning, really be willing to try new strategies in their classroom, be willing to share evidence of their students learning with each other, engage in problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
joint work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you get there?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is is part of the question. Dr. Stephanie Height and I write about real world examples in the book, Leading Collective Efficacy. She approached me a few years ago, and I thought the timing was really right. People wanted to see examples. And
Mm-hmm.
so we included examples in that book of real teams, real teachers, real school leaders, real coaches who were engaged in the work in a deep way and saw results because of their efforts.
Mm.
Um,
That's
you
that
asked,
no that's I love that. And when yeah, you're talking about when people experience, success, right? Like making it through, that's when collective efficacy happens. And beliefs change because of messages and experiences. And I think I do a lot of work around growth mindset and what it's not. And, growth mindset's also a set of beliefs.
Mhm.
And we get all hung up on messages because I think it's easier, right? If I just change the way I talk, then, or the way I think, then it will, or microphone's doing a funny thing. I can tell.
Yeah, you cut out for a minute.
There we go. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, my wire is being very if I bump it, it's like, no, we don't like that. Um, yeah, so we get hung up on messages to change beliefs, but experiences are just as important, right? Messages and experiences. So I love that you bring people through the process of experiencing something different. I'd love to hear what are before at the beginning of your journey with folks to build collective efficacy, what are some common things you hear teachers say?
Well, I think efficacy beliefs reveal themselves through those conversations. And when
Uh-huh.
efficacy is lacking, a lot of times people attribute causes for success and failure to things that are not within their realm of influence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It might sound something like, we can't expect much from these group of kids because of the neighborhoods where they come from, or their parents aren't involved, or they're not motivated. Um, and sometimes people see the research and they want to believe that it doesn't apply to them because that's not like my situation. It wasn't conducted here, it was conducted somewhere else, and it doesn't apply to me because my situation and context is different. And that's fair. That's fair to think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you run
Yeah.
across that as well.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, I hear things like they can't do it. It's a general like, well, they can't do it, so we've got to do something different. So yeah, that's what the a non-example of teacher efficacy or not having teacher efficacy sounds like. So, what do you hear at, kind of as you've been working with folks and they see success, they experience success, what are things that they say then?
Well, it's funny too, because I think a key thing for the listeners to consider is, even though sometimes people experience success,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't attribute it to the things that they did,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
so I think as a leader, we really have to increase that cause effect type of language.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers need to see that it's the things that they're doing, the efforts, the strategies, that are making the difference. And so
Mm-hmm.
making sure that people see that relationship between teaching causes learning. I know it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like we shouldn't have to be explicit about that.
Yeah.
Do.
We do. Yeah, because if you have kind of an external locus of control, if you're like, well, this because of the circumstances, they can't do it and then they get success, right? Unless there is a strong debrief and reflection piece, the success came because Joe wasn't in school today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times teachers like, oh, it's because so and so wasn't in school. That's why.
Right.
Right. It's like, no, no, no. Right. And so yeah. And this is a plug for reflection. Take time for reflection. Reflection and debriefing is so important. I believe there should be no observation without like a real observation, not like a walkthrough, but like a real observation without a debrief. Like we should never do learning walks without a debrief ever. Like what are we doing if we're not debriefing? We're just taking in through our own lenses, like reaffirming what we already think.
Right. That happens.
Yeah. So, okay, I love that you said that. So, what are concrete steps coaches and leaders can take to build collective efficacy?
Well, I think one of the most important things that coaches and leaders can do to increase collective efficacy is to help teams set interdependent mastery kind of goals.
Okay.
And in my experience, maybe in yours and maybe the listeners, we don't capitalize on goals enough.
Hmm.
They're often an exercise in compliance rather than a strategy to motivate individuals.
Totally. Oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. I hate to interrupt you, but like, yes, we have a lot of times goals become this like check boxy. I set a goal. I feel great. It's like, no, goals are meaningful. We want them to be meaningful. Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me interrupt. Continue.
No, it's good. Interrupt anytime. I also think that we largely focus, and I'm not sure about the audience because I know you have coaches that are
Hmm.
listening too, but when I think of from a school perspective, we often have the template for the school improvement plan and we have to set our SMART goals. And, that's what I talk about when it's an exercise in compliance. And I don't think we refer back to them when we're making decisions. It's just a checkbox. Like you said, it's something that's done. Um, I think we need to really, when we're working with teachers and teacher teams, focus less on performance goals and more on mastery type goals. And
Mm.
when we can make that distinction, those mastery goals become the motivating force for people to engage in the work.
Can you give an example of a performance goal versus a mastery goal?
Sure. Like a performance goal might be something like we want to increase our math scores by 6%, or our goal is to get 80% of our students performing at or above the state standard, but by a certain amount of time, one of those kind of numerical kind of goals. I've got a couple examples from my experiences of mastery goals. There was a group of grade 2 teachers in a school. It was a large school, and I think there were 3 teachers plus a learning support or a coach was at the table. And what they had noticed in their grade 2 classrooms, and it was consistent in many of the students were having difficulty with patterning in math.
Mm-hmm.
And so they set a mastery goal. They wanted all their grade 2 students to be able to recognize and create growing and shrinking patterns by the end of the quarter. That's more mastery than it is performance, because it really is focused on the standard. It's focused on the learning outcome. It implies collective action and shared responsibility. They were motivated to get that done. And I think what the research shows, I know what the research
Mm-hmm.
shows, is that mastery goals are preferable over performance goals for many reasons. Performance goals actually have a negative impact on student achievement. They're one of the things in the red zone. And I don't want anyone thinking, though, that my message is do away with performance goals. I think there's a place for them, but what the research shows is when the mastery goal is met, the performance goal takes care of itself.
Wow. Wow. I'm just letting that sink in. I didn't know that research. Wow. Okay. When the mastery goal is met, the performance goal takes care of itself.
Yes. And so in the schools where people are, taking that information and using it and
Mm-hmm.
focused on mastery goals, I've had feedback from coaches. Melissa in North Dakota at Bismarck, she's no longer there. She's moved to a different state, but she said that was a game changer. She said that really, really helped focus their work and
Mm-hmm.
change the narrative in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I think is fairly simple to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Do you find that your work around collective efficacy, like there's some kind of foundational human aspects to it, like building trust, relationships?
I think so. When you and I were talking before we started recording, when you said that the trust piece becomes important, I think so. But I also think that trust is a byproduct of the work.
Oh, interesting. All right. Messages and experiences. Like sometimes if you do the work together, you can build trust through that. And it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be fully present. I'm sure like it would be very hard to work with someone you actively distrust strongly, right? But wow. Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
I have and I can send this to you if you'd like. There's a monograph that was written by Megan Shannon Moran for the Ontario government when I was in Ontario. And she looked at the research on trust, and she said that that is the surprising truth, that people assume that it's hard to develop or you have to have it early on. But the research shows that people are more likely to extend provisional trust in the absence of any warning signs
Mm.
because it's less cognitively taxing, right? She said it's really difficult to be looking over your shoulder all the time. And so people are more likely to extend trust.
Mm-hmm.
There's no red flags.
Interesting. I would like this. This sounds very interesting. Yeah, like the neuroscience around because our brains do look for the easiest neural pathway.
Right.
Um, and I'm always surprised at like, whoa, that was the easiest. Right. Sometimes it's surprising what the easiest neural pathway is. Very interesting. I'm very interested in that work. Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. So this has been such an interesting conversation. Is there anything else that you'd love to leave our beautiful coaches and leaders listening with around building teacher collective efficacy?
I'm going to leave the audience with actually a message that John Hattie shared to an audience of similar audience. He said, and I think that the audience left feeling really good about what they're capable of doing. He said, as school leaders, you have the power to change the narrative. Sometimes the things that aren't so impactful dominate the conversations in schools, like class size or technology integration or, modified calendars. And he said these things, while they dominate the conversation, do not have the same likelihood of improving student results as collective teacher efficacy does. So really work to change that narrative where you're building up people's confidence in what they can do, both individually and collectively. They have the capability to impact positive change. And so change the conversations.
I love this so much. And just to put a plug in for a previous episode where we talk about academic mindsets, there's four academic mindsets that get adults and children unstuck, and we think it's growth mindset. Like if they only operate under a growth mindset, which is one of them. One of the academic mindsets is operating under growth mindset. Teacher efficacy is, or self-efficacy, sorry, because it can be for students too, is another one. Sense of belonging and meaning and purpose. And so this really, if you're interested in learning more about the academic mindsets, there's a recent previous episode with Jen Machen around that. And so I love, diving into this world of efficacy, self-efficacy, teacher efficacy, because it really helps folks get unstuck and empowered, which is the goal here, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. I would love you to share where can folks find you if they want to contact you or learn more about your work.
Excellent. Sure. I have a website, www.jennydonahue.com. They can Google me. They can find me on Instagram. Um, and I'd love to connect with anyone.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful expertise with us today.
Thank you for asking me to.